If you can read that, I'm really impressed. I've zoomed in the entire time as I was making this graphic about the Big Ten opponents for 2024 and 2025. And when I finally zoomed out, I said, wow, that was awful. And I spent so much time on it. I was like, well, I can't not put it up. So if you're looking at the graphic and you're like, JR, we can't read that. I know. I spent like 20 minutes on it. And
was it like one of those old school I Spies when you did that? Did you see like a shape when you backed back out, or?
Pretty much, yeah. That was pretty much how it was. So, and I was zoomed in way more than I thought I was. Like I thought I was just zoomed in a little bit, but anyway, let's talk some schedules here. Kent, let's start with you, man. What matchups are you looking forward to in the Big Ten with these matchups? Obviously, we have the West Coast teams, UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon. They're all going to play each other home and home in this one. Some other ones that we do have Indiana in the home and home with Ohio State. We do have Indiana. They're going to be at home against Michigan. The Purdue, they are getting a home and home with Indiana. Is that a protected rivalry, Russ? Does that happen every single year?
I would hope so, but that's one of the things I looked up was I didn't see any notes about protected rivalries or home and homes when they released this schedule, just the schedule release, and they said that's it, and they didn't really put any more notes into it. So
I really hope they keep the home and homes with the rivalries. You do have Michigan and Michigan State. They have a home and home here, so it gives me hope that that's happening. But yeah, Kent, your general thoughts on what matchups and things like that here in the Big Ten next year that you're excited to see?
I'm just excited about seeing all of it, to be honest, just right off the top, because if I'm reading your perfect graphic correctly, which I think that I am, everyone gets to play everyone at least once, and that's exciting just off the rip with so many teams. Yeah. Obviously, you kind of got to play everybody because they're in the conference. But my favorite matchups, though, for next year, that I went off the teams that are playing twice for my favorites. And obviously, you have to start at the top. And next year at the top, it's going to be Purdue and Indiana, I think. So the fact that they're playing twice at both arenas, very excited about that. We'll get that matchup twice next year. And then for a completely different reason, I like Rutgers and Michigan playing twice because their teams have been built so differently. Obviously, Michigan starting with a new coach, kind of working through the transfer portal this offseason, and then all the new guys that are coming in for Rutgers and some guys that they lost, obviously. The way that they're doing it is different, and I'm excited because I think that there's high expectations for both of those teams. So we'll get to see that matchup twice. And then just one last note, too. I'm just generally excited about all the West Coast home games because if it's a late night Tuesday and, there's nothing else going on and we get Oregon versus anybody from the East Coast, Maryland, that's going to be something that I'm excited about because I stay up late and the games are going to be starting later. It kind of extends, the spread of when games are starting and when games are taking place. So that makes me happy because it feels like I'm watching more basketball. So just all those West Coast home games I'm also really excited about. So those would be the three highlights for me when I'm looking at this schedule. I do have some negatives, though. I can let Russ go on his highlights first if you'd like. Oh, I think you're on mute right now, JR.
Let's get to this comment really fast, and then we'll get to Russ, and then we'll get to some negatives there. Philip says, excited Oregon will have a new court. Me too, Philip. I did not want to look at that awful piece of hardwood if I ever saw my team play there. Russ, your thoughts on the schedule?
Yeah, so, I kind of went, where Kent finished there and looked at how the new teams are tied into the conference because – you get excited about matchups like Purdue, IU, Illinois, Northwestern, Michigan, Ohio State, whatever. Like the old school rivalries in the Big Ten, are going to happen at least once. So it was more like, how are they going to integrate these new teams? And we talked about the protected rivalries. At least for this first year, the home and homes between the West Coast teams are all with each other. So it's already like moving towards something I thought would happen with these mega conferences, which is you're going to have pods or mini conferences within these mega conferences that are basically just like the old conferences. So if we sit here and get to like a 24, 30 team super conference, you're probably going to see them divided into divisions, which will basically be their own conferences. So, I don't know if that's going to be the same each year, that they're just going to keep the West Coast teams playing each other. And then, like USC and UCLA have an identical schedule, and Oregon and Washington have an identical schedule. So I guess they're going to do travel partners or something with those. But I was really excited about UCLA and USC coming to Indiana and Purdue. At Purdue, UCLA with, their most storied coach, John Wooden, having played at Purdue. Mick Cronin actually commented a few years back, they played at Mackey when they had that COVID NCAA tournament in Indianapolis. UCLA actually played their game in Mackey, and they walked through and saw the John Wooden history. And Mick Cronin was like, he and his team didn't really know all that history that existed because they learned about UCLA and how John Wooden's tied in out there. And then seeing also UCLA and USC go to Assembly Hall and not only play there, but play for a conference win. Like, that's going to be kind of weird to see and kind of cool to see at the same time, like those teams playing there for a conference win. And then Rutgers and Maryland likewise go all the way across country to Oregon and Washington. So it's going to be, really interesting to see them play all the way out there, travel all the way across country to get a Big Ten win. Like, that's just going to look weird because Rutgers and Maryland are already not original Big Ten teams. So it's, you talk about seeing how the college landscape is changing. That's going to be a really good snapshot of, what the new college sports is looking like.
Yeah, I agree. I totally forgot about the John Wooden aspect there with UCLA and IU and all that history and everything going down there. So UCLA will make the trip to Indiana twice, not just Indiana, but also Purdue, going to Mackey Arena there as well. So that's going to be a really cool time to see them make that trip and do that as well. So I'm also excited to see Illinois at Michigan this year. I think that those are two teams that I'm kind of questioning what it's going to look like. If you watched our last episode, you saw me and Ryan kind of go into it a little bit with Illinois. He's very confident. I'm a little bit less confident than he is, and we kind of talked about that a little bit. But I'm excited to see what these two teams look like. Dusty Mays, I think, is a really good coach, and I think Brad Underwood is a really good coach too. But they both have some pretty new teams, and it's going to be interesting to see. Kent, you had some negatives. What are your negatives of the schedule?
I don't know if they're negatives. It's just things I would like to see. I would have liked to see Purdue and Illinois play twice. I think that that is a rivalry that is building, and I would have liked to see that game twice this year. And then kind of sticking on the Purdue theme, Northwestern only playing Purdue once as well. Would have been nice to see that twice. But obviously, it's impossible to get all the games that I want to see twice on the schedule when you have 17 other teams that you're trying to squeeze in there. But if I was making the schedule, I would have probably started with that. I would have said Purdue's playing Indiana, Northwestern, and Illinois twice, because those are going to be the best games, and they are the ones that I said, I think the other two, obviously Indiana already a rival, but the other two building to be a rival, for years to come. And then kind of disagreeing with Russ just a little bit here. I didn't like that we're doing the West Coast teams favors at all. Like, I think we should make them travel more. And they've already been playing these teams. We should, welcome to the conference, UCLA. You're going to Maryland twice this year. Or I'm sorry, not twice, obviously, but you're going to go to Maryland, and Maryland's coming to you. You're not going to play any of these West Coast teams twice, is basically what I'm getting at. I feel like we did them, all four of them, a big favor by having their home and homes against each other. And I didn't like that because, they're new. I feel like we should there should be a bit of not hazing, but a little welcome to the conference. They should have to work for it a little bit. You guys with me on that?
Hey, thanks for checking out the College Huddle. We'll be right back, but please do like and subscribe. We do want to make sure you know that we have a new episode every single day focusing in on a different conference. You can also visit thecollegehuddle.com to find a list of all of our podcast partners and great articles written by me and so many others. Please do go check us out. We appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
Yes and no. Yeah. I feel like that was probably part of the agreement in coming into the Big Ten, that they were like, hey, okay, the first year, while you get used to your travel arrangements going across country, we'll let you play each other home and home this year, but next year we got to switch it up. Like UCLA and USC will probably stay home and home, and Oregon and Washington will probably stay home and home. But then your other two home and homes have got to be other Big Ten teams.
Yeah. I would like that more.
I looking at Nebraska there. They didn't do Nebraska many favors with their home and homes like they did with the teams out west. Nebraska has to Iowa. Yeah, that's a favor, I guess, because it's not as far, but they got to travel all the way out to Maryland, and then Ohio State is not exactly a short travel either for them. So, I mean, obviously out west, it's a whole lot of land, so it probably comes out similar to the Nebraska Ohio State travel there. But that's a good point. I didn't think about all of them doing that and how that works. But Russ, we have a good question here from Philip. I feel like you'll have an opinion on. He says, would you like to have basketball split east and west, have more home and homes, not guaranteed to play every team every year? So you have more home and homes. You're kind of almost guaranteed. Indiana and Purdue play home and home every year. Michigan State plays home and home every year, that kind of stuff. But you are not playing every single team at least once per season. I mean, it's a good question by Philip. What would you prefer, Russ?
Well, then you get into, well, what's the point of a conference then? That's where especially old school people are hating the whole football side of things, because you have 17 other teams in the conference, but you only play 9 of them. So it's a lot of the luck on who's going to win the conference or even make a bowl game is going to be on what schedule you draw that year. So that's the one negative I have against the schedule is I want you to be able to play every team in the conference, but there should be more than 3 home and homes in conference play. Like that's a little ridiculous to me, and it's a little annoying to me that you don't play more home and homes. And I don't know about Purdue, Illinois being a rivalry because Purdue's won 5 straight, but yeah, Purdue playing more traditional Big Ten teams twice would be nice. Yeah.
It's a rivalry online for sure.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Well, they got all excited because they went from 11-9 in conference 2 years ago to actually challenging again this year. So, yeah.
I love the smack.
I like it. I like it, Russ. Bring the energy.
Kent, who would you say, looking at this, obviously we've not seen any of these teams play yet or anything like that, but just how the rosters and things like that, who would you say has probably the most difficult schedule from the way it looks right now?
I think that I go right back up to the top about the one that I'm most excited about. I think it's Indiana and Purdue because they have to play each other twice. And like I said, I think as it sits right now, I think those are the 2 best teams in the conference. So having to play either the first or second best team in the conference twice is difficult. If you look at Indiana, they also have to play Ohio State and Penn State twice. Penn State, up and coming. Ohio State, JR, we're not exactly sure what they're going to be next year, but I think that they'll be pretty good. And then Purdue has to play Michigan and Rutgers twice. So, like, gun to my head, I would say Purdue has the hardest schedule. They play Indiana, Michigan, and Rutgers twice. And then, obviously the other, whatever it would be, 14 games or whatever it is, they play everybody else. The easiest one, though, based on the roster, because I think UCLA is going to be very good, is their schedule. And I know they have to travel a lot still because they're on the West Coast, but we just talked about it. They have their 3 home and homes right there on the West Coast. And I think that with the games that they have and with the roster that they have, the coaching that they have, I think that they have the easiest schedule.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Who'd you say had the easiest?
UCLA.
I was going to say UCLA had the hardest. What?
Why do you say that?
I got some notes for why they're the hardest as well.
At Illinois, at Indiana,
well,
Maryland.
Here's why I'm saying here. Let me defend myself, okay?
Not allowed.
Okay, I won't defend myself. That's fine. No, everybody's playing everybody, right? So when you're really looking at who has the hardest schedule, you're only looking at those 3 home and home games. The teams that you have to play twice.
I disagree. Yeah, I disagree.
Because I didn't go deeper into like who exactly they are playing home and away.
Yeah, so I kind of expected them to the first year do home and homes with the 4 West Coast teams. So then I looked at what their away games are. What's everybody's away games? Because the big thing in the Big Ten last year was that home court advantage was huge in the Big Ten, right? Like I think it was more dominant than any other power conference. So who do you have to play on the road? Like who do you have to earn road wins in to try to get a leg up on the rest of the conference? And if you're trying to make it the toughest for somebody, especially a new West Coast team, what would you say? Let's give them the 4 top finishers from the year before, and let's give them the 2 farthest teams from him in Rutgers and Maryland, and that's what UCLA and USC got, right?
They're playing counterpoint though, Russ. That means that they're playing weaker teams at home though.
Right, but you don't need the advantage against a weaker team, right? Like I'd rather play at a depleted team to get that win easier and play the tough team at home and get the advantage against a tough team. You know what I mean?
I understand that. I understand, but
Like,
I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if you're gonna lose one, why? I would rather play the harder teams away and just take the loss.
If you're a coach of a team that's a bubble team in the Big Ten, and you're like, I want to get a key win, I want to play Purdue. Do you want to play them at home or away?
Away. I'll just take that loss and I'll play an easier team at home and get a win.
Then how's that help your conference resume? You beat the
because
easy
I'll have
team
more
at home.
wins. I'll have more wins. If
Right,
I
but
play Purdue at home and I lose,
how'd that work for Indiana State though? I know they're not a Big Ten team, but I'm just saying, like, they had the wins, but wins aren't everything. You got to beat quality teams, and if you want a chance to beat a quality team, I'd prefer to play them at home than on the road.
I understand that point, but I guess what I'm trying to push back on is, though, if I get Purdue at home and then I lose, that's even worse.
I kind of see what Kent's saying, because, like, if you can guarantee yourself 9 wins at home because you play easier competition at home, like strength of schedule doesn't matter in conference. You're still going to get a better standing, I guess, in a tiebreaker, but the tiebreaker is then decided by who you beat and stuff like that between each other. But I kind of see what Kent is saying. I still feel like I would not want to play Indiana and Purdue on the road, but I see what you're saying, Kent. So I can't necessarily fully disagree with it, but I do think that USC is going to have a hard time if they don't win all their home games of being a good team in the conference, because I don't see them beating Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Purdue, Rutgers, UCLA. I think they lose twice to UCLA, and I think they lose all those road games I mentioned. Maybe they beat Nebraska. I don't know. Well, no. Nebraska's insane at home, so they're not beating Nebraska. They're going to lose all those road games, and then they're going to lose to UCLA both times.
Yeah, I was talking about UCLA when I said who had the easiest schedule, because they have a good team.
Yeah, that's true.
USC's not good.
That's true.
I definitely would agree with your argument from a football standpoint, because that's about racking up 6 wins and getting to a bowl game. I feel like the committee has shown that quantity of wins isn't everything. You've got to get, where did you beat the team and who did you actually beat? So, but I agree. I see your point. Like, you want to get wins. At the end of the day, you have to have a good record to make the tournament. But yeah.
Good discussion there.
Also, sorry, I'm going to add one more thing too. I don't know if we got to the easiest, but the easiest schedule, not because of the roster, but if they had kept some of the guys that they've lost and some of the people that have broke Kent's heart, Minnesota,
yes,
for an opposite reason, I feel like got a pretty good draw.
Yeah, they did.
Having Penn State and a reeling Wisconsin team as your double plays, and getting Illinois, Purdue, and Northwestern as home only in the barn. If they had kept their roster together, they'd have a pretty good shot at making the tournament this year.
And I mean, we don't have to get too deep into it, but, like, is Michigan State going to be better this year or worse this year than they were last year? Because, like, I like the Frankie Fiddler edition, but I still so much question what Tom Izzo is going to do with that front court. And he doesn't seem to want to play small ball. So, like, I don't know. I don't love the outlook for Michigan State this year. They might struggle more this year than they did last year. I'm a big Jeremy Fears fan, but first year starting, primary ball handler, like, and he didn't even play last year hardly. Obviously glad he's okay, but I mean, am I wrong to think that Michigan State could be worse this year than they were last year?
No, you're not wrong. I mean, we got to wait and see, obviously, but after this past year watching them, like, nothing's going to surprise me with them anymore. Like, them not making the tournament is realistic in my eyes. I do have a question about Michigan State and Minnesota specifically, though. They're two teams I just noticed have to travel to the West Coast twice. Do you guys think they're going to try to set that up to where they can do it in the same trip, or no?
So Painter's actually talked about in some of his coaches shows being on, like, competition committees and different NCAA committees. And they've talked about, when they do this schedule expansion, doing basically travel partners and pairing teams and pairing road games together. So, like, when UCLA and USC travel to Indiana and Purdue, you might see UCLA at Purdue and USC at Indiana on Thursday night. And then on Sunday, you'll see them basically swap arenas, and the other one will play it, and that's what they'll do. And you've noticed that they kind of pair those teams together in their schedules. Like, they play at Minnesota and Wisconsin. So Minnesota and Wisconsin will probably be in the same weekend. at
Gotcha.
Maryland and Rutgers. So those will probably be in the same weekend. And then vice versa, when, Indiana and Purdue play at USC and UCLA, you'll see those games on Thursday night, and then they'll switch arenas on Sunday. And that'll make it a little bit easier on the travel for these teams.
Smart. I like that. Good insight. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what I'm here for. Don't tell Dylan.
Russ is smart. Good job, Russ. Yeah, Phil. Oh, I meant to click on Philip there. Yeah, Philip. That's the key for Michigan State. Fears and Booker. Are they going to take that jump and be who they need to be? So we shall see what happens with Michigan State.